Okay, here we go. Um, all right. So we have here, we're learning Hilchos Rechilas Klal Vav. We're up to Sif Ches. Din Isu Kabbalas Rechilas Hu Afilu Mi Mesiach Lefi Tumai. All right, we discussed this in Hilchos haLashon. Mesiach Lefi Tumai means someone is recounting to you something. He has no intent in saying something bad about somebody, but as per the story that he's telling over, you know, something bad is being shared, and there is such a thing in halacha and in kashrus and things like that. That a mesiach fitumai, if I'm not mistaken, even a goy is believed and trusted if he says, something that I don't know. But the question here is, can he be makabel rechilas if the person is mesiach fitumai? We had learned you're not allowed to be makabel rechilas. So says the Chavetz Chaim here that the is of kabbalas rechilas is even if he's mesiach fitumai. Dainu, and he defines shehu raya shamasapali kivin mazel orver medanim. The person saying over this rechilas, he didn't have any intention of making a machol because he doesn't mean to badmouth, that person to you specifically. It just happened, he was schmoozing and he said it. People talk without thinking. Oh, yes, a proto. So he says it's still also to be makabel to believe the rechilas. Oh, yes, a proto before that, but Kal Zayin, Visif Tes, he says, for more particulars of this halacha, you could go back to Hilchos Lashon Hara. We discussed it in Indian Lashon Hara, who had in Indian rechilas, and the same is true here. But in short, it's also. Imra of Dram Nikorim, Shanir Ayodam She'emisu. If you saw, I'm not sure it's the right translation, but circumstantial evidence that what this guy is saying is true. Mashasipru Allah, Shu Asalom. Right? You have circumstantial evidence that what Reuven is telling you that Jim did to him meaning, let's say Levi, Levi has certain things that seem to indicate that it's true what Reuven's telling him. People of Kach said something about him. Are you allowed in that case to believe the rechilas? I know, b'chelek alf b'kol zayin sif yud at sif yud al yishom beyarnu v'ezis Hashem kol pratim shayachim b'zeh. He says, so if you really want to know, go back to Hilchos Lashon Hara, where he tells you to look. He says, K'dei l'hokel ha'korah, it's just to make it easier for you. Echto b'kita yoyt misham, I'll sum up in short what it says there. The tzarech l'za'elu chamisha pratim, that you would need 5 conditions to be able to believe it in such a case. The case of Dvarim Nikarim. Number 1, she'inish Dvarim Nikarim Ram Alav Shu Emes Lo'eva Ma L'Shofted Tzadchus. Now, first of all, that Dvarim Nikarim that seems to indicate what the guy's telling you is true has to be something that you can't explain it, the Tzadchus. Because if you could explain that circumstantial evidence, even though it's true that the guy did it or said it, but it could be explained that he didn't mean it to do it in a bad way, he meant to do it in a good way, then the Lav Hochi, if there is a way of interpreting the Kaschus, Mashach was said to come Shu Emes. So why does it help you that it's true? Because I feel Emes, even if it's true, you still can't therefore say that that guy did bad and meant bad about you because the act isn't inherently something bad. Become a mekaymis. Number 2, it has to be outright the varim hanikarim. Can be sort of an indication, right? It has to be real circumstantial evidence. Number 3, she'iras hadvarim hanikarim ba'atzmai, that Levi saw the dvarim hanikarim firsthand. And not they heard that stuff from someone else, because then it's also not relevant. And number 4, the dafka, the old story, it has to be tayelis. even if it's true, you can't believe it unless, and even unless what? Unless there is a toyelis for the future, the lavachi. Because if there's no toyelis that that Reuven said or did something to Levi, there's no toyelis for Levi for the future. What is done is done. It's past history. Also, hatos, also Shmiras, not even allowed to listen. As soon as you understand that the guy is saying something, saying some type of rechilas, and you understand that it has no tayelis for you for the future, you have to stop listening. Doesn't matter if there's devar in the karma or not. You're not allowed to listen. And number 5, even if you fulfill number 4, the 4 conditions, it still won't help the dvarim and the karma in lahamin. Just helps to the extent that you're allowed to believe that what you're being told is true. But you're not allowed to tell it to anyone else. And also listen to the current mamash, and you certainly can't, based on this, even if you believe it, you can't now go and cause that person a loss or hit him, beat him up, and act upon it. You could only believe it, and you could take steps if it's nageya, to protect yourself. Find the El Sham Sif Yudalit Sharach Mazet. Take a look earlier in Hilchas Lashon Hara, where he says he developed this thing even more. Valpisa Tira B'chush. So he says, based on what he just said, the 5 conditions. He says, so you'll see, your mama see, how people make a mistake. If someone has a business, and because of someone slandered him to the courts, to the government, and because of that, he has a loss. You saw during the current, and now he has during the current. Certain Jew is the one who went to the authorities. Based on that, so he goes and he now slanders and he's malshin on that person. Right? He's going to get him back. Okay, you went to the authorities, and my parents once they lived in Flatbush, and they extended their house, and the neighbor went to whoever it is, to the whoever makes those rules, who deals with those rules of expanding a house, snitched that they did it, even though they didn't have an official permit for it, right? So now, this is what's very common, which is not true by my parents, right? That you'll go, because the funny thing here was that neighbor on his own had done the same thing. You understand? It was a firm yid, the neighbor. So what many people would do is that they say, okay, I'm going to City Hall and I'm going to get him back, right? He says, so that's not mutter. Because people say, if someone snitched on someone, and you're allowed to snitch back on him. That's what people say. He tells Gemara, Tommy says, but it's a mistake. It's a total mistake. No heter. Why? For a few reasons. Number one, the dinta who dafkim aydei mashinas hashniya tetos halabah. That would only be true, first of all, if by snitching back, it'll save you. You'll have a tayelis for the future. The guy will stop. He's in a process, let's say, of being malshan on you, being malshan on. The only way you can stop him is by being malshan on him. That the other person will stop snitching on you, right? So then that would be muta only in such a case where when you're snitching on him, that's in order to make sure that he won't continue doing it. You have no other way of protecting yourself from this other individual. But if your intention is just to get revenge on the guy, what he did, says the Chavis, it's mamash also no heter whatsoever. You could look it up. Simon Shin Perches. If that's. Void number two, the Chosem who wrote Ein of Shoshina. It's only true, even in the case where it's mutter, it's only if you know firsthand that he did it. But to rely on Dvarim, well, it's most probably that guy. He's the one who has a benefit from it, etc. I don't know. I feel like Dvarim Nikarim Mamish, even if it's outright Dvarim Nikarim, and you saw firsthand the Dvarim Nikarim, who canal. I guess maybe you saw the guy going into the courthouse. I don't know. I don't know what the Dvarim Nikarim do, but still, you don't know what he did in there. Okay. So then it's not a heter. Even if it would be a case where you would be malshin back in order to stop him and to protect yourself for the future. If the only way you know he was malshin is based on Dvarim Nikarim, you can't do it. V'choshken, and certainly Imrak Anoshim Sipru Leishum Malshina. If your whole information is based on others who were malshin, there was that feel that if that's your source, it's not your own Dvarim Nikarim that you saw it yourself, but it's because people told you, then you're not even allowed to believe it. Unless they went to Bezdin to aid him, and they testified in Bezdin that this guy was Malshin. Okay, in Bezdin, then you're allowed to believe it. Or you feel chutz of Bezdin, Rakshin aspire beberichin achov safek. Even if it's not a business says Chavsam, if you made your own investigation and you came to a 100% certainty that the guy did it, right? I don't know, maybe you got into the court documents and you see that he signed the papers and he signed the complaint. I don't know. Malachas kama certainly certainly he says based on that because people told you or during the current certainly now that of course the other guy damaged. Even if your intention is tayelis, but if your basis for saying that he was a malshin is because of during the current or because people told you, it doesn't give you the heter of even to protect yourself of being malshin back. Okay, let's go to Shmiras haLashon. And here we're learning about bitochen here a little bit. Okay. He was saying an interesting concept. He says it's a logical thing, says the Chavetz Chaim, that if someone has a Seder, that's Seder to learn that, right? And now he's approached with a business deal that he can make some money. But he would have to be Mavatal the Seder. He says it can't be that that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to do. Baruch Hu wants you to stop learning to make that money. And if you're supposed to get that money, you're going to get it some other way. But to say that I'm supposed to be Mavatal my learning in order to get that profit, he says it doesn't make sense that that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu would want you to do. He says, now we're in Shar Tvuna Perik Tes, Chof Teves. He says that even if you see, which is very common, that you'll see other people who taka. They had some great business deal and they skipped the Seder, they skipped the Tefillah, and they were successful. They made a killing. Yispain and hate of Tomer Binyan and V'yireh says if you really give a good look at what's going on, there should come upon you'll see that many times that down the road there's all kind of mess ups. Yovahem Gaius, it could be that from some other way they'll have a loss. I mean, the Chavetz Chaim's talking in his times where bandits will come, right? You have all kind of other losses. It's so interesting because I just saw this. Where did I just see this idea? And the Birchas Parrot. Just saw it. Just a quick look. Oh, yeah, I just saw this idea that even if you make money, yeah, he says over here, he's talking about the famous thing, that Ara made a gzeira to throw the children, his Argazes will have told him that there's going to be born a male child that's going to save Klal Yisrael. So he made a gzera that all the male children should be thrown into the Yam. But that in itself turned up against him because they had that gzera. Yocheved and Miriam put Moshe into the water. Batya, Abisya, his daughter, Paro's own daughter, went to the river and found Moshe and brought him home. And Paro himself raised Moshe, who in turn, right? So you see that if there's a gezerah that's supposed to be, you can do everything you want to do the opposite, and it's not going to help you. So he says, "V'yeh shol goso lov davar zeh." He says, "V'gam ki have upon manich mosel atzriach at times they allow you to look like you're being matzliach. You'll have a different loss from somewhere else. So you really didn't make it. You could have made a lot of money, but then someone got sick in the family and you had big doctor bills. So at the end, you do the math, you didn't end up with more. Your car, someone hit your car. You had this nice car, brand new car, and now you have an expense. So even though it looks like you're making more money down the road many times, there's a balance. Okay, so that's what the Chafetz Chaim is saying over here. He says, even if you see that at times, yes, people did. They skipped their davening, they skipped the learning, right? And yet they were successful. He says, many times if you follow it down the road, you see that ultimately they didn't have a gain. Like they said, and that's because he made that money either in not an honest way or at a time when he shouldn't have been working in the business when he was supposed to be davening. As that time that he made the money, that was supposed to be designated for learning. It says in Pirkei in the Ovis Reb Nosson, anyone who's Mavatal from Divrei Torah, knows he has a set time to learn his Mavatal. So Mishamayim, Shivadlu Oisoi Minyonav Sha'oma Behena Data. That Mishamayim, they bring all kind of things to happen that will counteract what he was doing now to make more money. Kigoin, says the Pirkei Rebbe excuse me, the Ovis Reb Nosson. Ari Uzei v'nomor bardos v'nochash v'gayosis olistim boyim ha'makifin oisim in a frame imena shenema achesh elikim shayftim words. Hashem has all kind of judges, and he's giving examples of wild animals. Maybe they attack your sheep, your animals, and you get punished. Ad kan l'shayne v'umida connected mida, and says Chafetz Chaim. This what the Ovis Reb Nosson is saying is actually a mida connected mida. The tachas shum mevatam mitoyra v'omer lasoifein ra'av. That instead of that in place because he's Mavatal Torah and he works hard to make a lot of money, my son, but one of the said they bring other things that will be Mavatal what he's doing. Shivatal is a minyan of Shama Be'marata. A few main Horgan, so Hariva said that even if the wild animals don't kill him, the Savile Kapanim, well, Yadam have said he still has a loss. He has to run away. We'll have Gisruchushai. And he has to leave his property. He can't live there anymore. Or he has to heal himself. He has to pay doctors. And at times he can get sick. To the extent that at the end, the money he made in an improper way or in a wrong time, or he had money, he was supposed to give it to Tzedakah, and he didn't want to give it to Tzedakah. So Mishamayim, you lose the money some other way. You get a big doctor's bill. You get a dentist. You have to have a dental work. Ukamamar and Besa, Deloy Pasuach Laniyach, as I'll say that a house that's not open to the poor. Pasuach La'asya, it's open to the doctor. He says, and sometimes it also happens for Bitul Torah. If a person sees that he's suffering, he has illnesses, so you should look at your actions and see if you did anything wrong. Says the Gemara, let's say I searched for my actions. I did a inventory, spiritual inventory, and I don't find it did wrong. Yitla b'bitul Torah. So then you should say that it happened because of bitul Torah. Ve'im kein achai. He says, so my brother, lama l'cha l'kabetz Moshe enun shalcha. Why spend time gathering, making money? That's not really your money. You're not going to have it. Or to not give away the money that's supposed to go to Hashem's portion, to the tzedakah, to the aniyim. Via tzedakah. Or why taking away time that you're really meant to designate for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, davening and learning, right? If at the end you're going to have to end up spending it, so it's like give it back to Hashem, spend it, whether because you have illnesses or you have tzaras. And be happy that you left alive. And Klolo Shodava so summarizes the Chafetz Chaim Va'ilam Umloya Shakadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu, the whole world is in Hashem's hands. For who bara kol abrim l'chvoidei, and He created all of us to bring cover to Hashem. Moshe Amar Kosav, v'niku b'shmi l'chvoidei barasem. Ubevodai lo yidor mimenu shum sibra, says the Chafetz Chaim. So certainly you will not lose out one little bit. I feel b'zal even in this world, shigma ritzaynei. Bein l'tov bein l'mutav. Sheyigmar ritzaynei, yigram mimenu shum sibra, that you're rotten, that what Hashem wants to do, you're going to get it. And you don't have to worry. And therefore, the Pasuk says, have trust in Hashem, but say and do good, and don't worry. You don't lose out ultimately from doing the right thing. Okay, Rabbi Isai, Simcha.